What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Berry, and myself, Scott McNally. All of our programming is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there for high-quality third-party tested supplements from a company you can trust. You can even buy like 1 pound of protein at a time if you want to try out a new flavor. In fact, my dad doesn't get any protein in. Like, he eats like a cracker. That's his entire diet for the day. So I bought him 1 pound of pure ISO vanilla flavor, and just because I wanted to just give that to him and say, like, Dad, would you please just try this and see if we get a little more protein in your diet? So you don't have to make like a huge commitment if you haven't used them before. Check them out. Use our code THINK. Also, go to supplementsource.ca if you're in Canada, because you'll get some good deals over there. Those deals change week to week, short dated, label change products, all that kind of stuff. Like, if you like deals and you live in Canada, then go to supplementsource.ca. Also, thank you to everybody from Patreon. You guys are the best. I've got some Patreon questions. And if you are new here, then let me encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell, because we have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week. Tons of education like this, plus entertainment. We have, we're doing YouTube shorts now, and we've got our reaction videos coming out every Saturday. Guys, I'm excited to get this thing going. We've got a whole bunch of listener questions that have been lined up, and I wanted to jump straight in with this one. We had somebody ask, awesome episode, question for BSG. What are the coach's strategies for post-contest rebound, specifically for an amateur bodybuilder who wants to get a pro card? Thanks, fellas. So I'm assuming that means like somebody who wants to try to put on they're trying to get as much muscle as possible, probably, right? So basically the rebound, let's look at it that way. Maybe it's not even post-contest, but after dieting, how do you guys, or how do we all handle that rebounding phase to maximize muscle gains?
Well, let's start with gear, because I'm sure that you're going to keep them on gear, you're going to take them off. I'm going to keep them on gear. I'll just go on and say that unless the blood work is egregious or abhorrent, then stay on another 6, 8, 10 weeks. Ride that post-contest rebound. Doesn't have to be, obviously it wouldn't be the prep cycle, but a couple solid compounds, test Primo, test MPP, something along that line. And I'm just going to say it, plenty of GH. And then we'll get into the nutrition part. What do you guys do with gear? That's not always, but I'm saying it. I don't want to make a blanket statement, but you don't want to pull gear and then try to come off of a show and get a little bit of a post-contest rebound,
Well, let's be honest. There probably isn't much of a rebound if you're pulling gear right out, and if your goal is absolute safety, right? And now, to add gear or not gear, or to keep gearing or not keep gearing, I think it comes down to a couple variables. How much did you push and how long did you push, to do the contest season? For instance, if you had an athlete that did a qualifier in June, and then they did a national level show in July, and then they were like, hey, I got third place, I want to keep pushing, I want to try to hit nationals in, November or December.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to pull off a little bit somewhere in there, but it's not like you're doing a full-on, detox off the gear. So gear is still involved there. So you're looking at like 30, 35 weeks of being on gear at that point. That might be a situation where, okay, we might want to pull you off. Your labs might not be telling us, it might not be giving us good news, and we do need to put health first. But let's say it's a standard 18, 20-week prep. They did their show. They won their class. They won the show, and their goal is to go and do a national level show next year and try for that pro card. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to probably push them for at least 8, maybe even 12 weeks, depending. Now, what compounds, how much we use, that's so dependent on the athlete, right? Mm-hmm. I'm probably going to pull things like Winstraw. I'm going to pull things like Halo Testin. So most of the orals are probably coming out. I'm going to be relying on testosterone. I might keep Masteron in, or I might go Primobolan. I'm probably going to add an NPP in somewhere there. And it's, dosage wise, it's so dependent. If you're a 225 pound super heavyweight, we're probably going to be running 1,500 to 2 grams of gear a week. I'll just go out and say it. I know back in the day it was standard. A lot of times I heard, all you need is 500 milligrams of test post show. But I mean, my good friend and mentor, John Meadows, that was his thing. Pull everything else out, 500 milligrams of test. We'll run it for 8 weeks, and then we're going to come off everything. Right. Guys are a little bit greedier. they don't have as much time. They want to make more progress. And, I think with what we do with, looking at labs, using health supplements, I think we can push the gamut harder than maybe we thought we used to be able to 10, 12 years ago. So yeah, I'm definitely going to push the gear after a show.
I'm with you guys. I think like the spot where I wouldn't push the gear would be like, remember everything Gary Turner said that he had done. You know what I mean? Like where you're kitchen sinking it. At that point, I'm like, let's just be happy that we're still here and, focus on trying to get you as healthy as possible. But yeah, I would pull the orals. I would probably pull like any kind of additional hardening compounds. And you were about to say growth hormone, Skip. You know what I totally forgot, man? This is completely sidebar. I forgot how beneficial growth was to me when I used to come off and do PCT. Like I felt amazing. If we could keep growth high through that rebound phase, man, that would be great. Like I feel like you could do a lot with that in itself. The gear though, it's not to me even like the highest focus. What about like what are your guys' thoughts? And I know everybody's going to be individual. The food, what are we doing with food? Because I remember my first contest not understanding this whole thing. And I thought to myself, like, so the more carbs I can eat, the better. And I'm thinking to myself, so post-contest, if I can eat 2 cups of rice, I'm eating like no carbs barely, by the way, going into the show. So I'm thinking like, I want to grow as much as possible. So that means pre-workout, I'll eat 2 cups of rice, and post-workout, I'll eat 2 cups of rice. And then meal 5, I'll eat 2 cups of rice. And if you just went from 0 to that, like thankfully I was working with somebody who helped me to see that wasn't the best move. How do you navigate that filling back out and actually making legit gains in this phase? Do you hit it like really hard out the gate? Well, like, and if you do, like what are the signs we're looking for that we're on the right track?
Well, it has to be calculated, obviously, but I've always said, and I know that this is going to be mistaken as a blanket statement by at least a few people, but most people can come off of a contest prep and they can double the carbs that they were eating for the last few weeks as a starting point without any problem. Even if your metabolism is on fire and you're a Nate Spear and you're taking in 300 or 400 grams of carbs a week, he could still double them coming off of a prep and probably not all of a sudden in 2 weeks be like, I'm fat. I always laugh and say, we never get fat slowly. We wake up one morning and go, we're fat. Yeah. Yesterday I wasn't fat. It's just that realization that, now I've crossed the line.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because I totally agree with you. I think, if you had an athlete that was averaging around 200 grams of carbs, you should have no problem, 350, 400, somewhere in there. I don't think it's the carb addition that gets you fat. I think it's the extracurricular, I'm going to add this cheat meal in. And let me say this, though, because and Shelby makes this great post every year after some of the contest seasons about, hey, look, you've restricted yourself. You said no to these things for 20, 25 weeks. It's okay not to beat yourself up and have a few free meals. And if you fall off your plan a little bit, it's totally okay. Like it's completely natural. And I get where his mindset is saying, because you don't want to have someone develop, some type of body dysmorphia or some type of, food related issue. Right? Because it's just natural. You work your ass off for one thing, you get to the finish line, you breathe that sigh of relief. You do want a little this and a little that. The issue is, I think, bringing it back circle to getting fat post show is when you're not being honest with your coach or yourself if you're doing your own nutrition and you're adding your base diet. You're adding to your base diet, but then you're also not accounting for those 3 or 4 monster cheat meals that you're adding in a week that you weren't having leading up to that show. I mean, that now instead of doubling your carbs, now we're almost essentially doubling your weekly calories. And that is a recipe to get fat pretty quickly, especially if you're pulling T3, if you're pulling fat burners like clenbuterol, if, you're not doing 2 hours or an hour of cardio anymore, but I agree with you guys. I think somewhere in that 1.5 to 2 times the carbs, that you should definitely be able to get away with that. And partly it's because you're reducing a lot of your stress. You're reducing because you're probably pulling cardio back at the same time. And there is a lot to be said by reducing sympathetic stress and allowing the body to feed and let your metabolism come up naturally.
I might not go quite as high. And I'm not saying this just to be contrary, but I'm asking myself, like, what do I do? Because some of this stuff, some of these things we don't necessarily think about verbalizing, like, well, in general, this is how I do. I kind of think of it as like, I'm actually just working day to day, and I'm looking at what's happening and I react to what's happening with the person. So it's like like we always say, it's super individual. But one thing I think I noticed I do is I'm like, let's say they're eating 200 carbs. Instead of going to 400, I might go to like 3 and then bless you. And then do a cheat meal more frequently, where we have that way. I'm like, we're giving you this break because I know this next month is going to kind of suck. And no matter what we do with the food, you're going to be hungry and you're going to have these cravings. Let's get you through this phase. And I kind of monitor off that. So like we might say instead of 200 carbs, now we're at 300 plus have a cheat meal. And maybe we're doing a cheat meal like every 3rd day or every 4th day, something along those lines. And we just kind of keep monitoring and adding as we go. That might be the only thing I'm thinking, like, what would I do differently? If I were to do something differently, I would go something along those lines.
Calorically, that equals out to about what we're talking about, too. So it's exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, it's calories,
it's
that
like
are going to be making
system.
the difference.
Yeah, no matter what the system is, so that you can adjust from it. Yeah.
Bingo.
I think the only thing that I would say to counter the cheat meal every 3 to 4 days is there's a big gray area there. It could be a giant pizza one day, and
we keep it consistent. We keep it. Yeah, we lock it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think we're dealing with typically we're dealing with regimented people who, as an example, they'll have a meal or two, maybe 3 meals between the show and Monday morning, but they typically want to clean it up by the beginning of the week. So sometimes I'll go literally back to, especially if they go batshit crazy and they get into maybe even Monday or Tuesday, we'll go right back to the prep diet.
Oh yeah,
2 or 3 or 4 days. That way you can kind of put them at ease and give them peace of mind, because a lot of that is going to be water. Then they get cleaned up and they're like, okay, I'm in pretty good shape. Then you can move forward with increasing calories on a more regimented case. Because I think a lot of us, especially maybe not first-time competitors and new competitors, because they tend to celebrate more and they tend to struggle with the post.
They bring the brownies to the show with them, and they start eating them as soon as they get off stage.
It becomes a 3-week endeavor
before the night show.
Your family and your friends and at work, they're buying everything for. Oh, you can eat this now. You can eat this now, and it's tacos and everything else. But I think most of us are. It doesn't take us long before, like, okay, I'm all fooded out, and I'm out of my routine. I want to go back to what's familiar, and I want to be structured. It doesn't usually take very long. And then it's just a system. Really, there's not a bad system. Let's say you go 3 times over on carbs, but it takes you 3 days to figure out, okay, I'm starting to, hold water. Maybe this is too much. It's an honest assessment, like Andrew was saying. And here's another point that I think is important. It happens a lot. Guys are horrible with this. They become delusional.
Oh.
They start to fill out, and they think that they're putting on 20 pounds of muscle. And that's what leads me to all of a sudden I wake up one morning and I'm not good with my condition. You didn't get fat overnight. What you did was you justified it. You loved the pumps. You loved how great you felt, how great you looked. And it slowly slid, and you weren't noticing it because it didn't happen all of a sudden. Then you think one morning when you wake up that all of a sudden it happened, but it didn't. You just all of a sudden realize that now you're a slob. And then it's a slippery slope, because then you don't want to go back to dieting. You're not all that motivated to go back to dieting when what you should do is clean it up, because maybe some of that is water and you may clean up a bit. But then they kind of accept this is my condition, and then they have to lock in, and then they have to figure out, okay, now I need to cut my calories down, or do I just ride with this condition? And it becomes a mess at that point. You have to come out of a show regimented, and you have to come out of a show structured at some point. 2-3 days, 4 is pushing it.
Well, and you can say all this about I'm eating, and then all of a sudden I wake up, I'm fat. You can say this, and we can agree with you because we've all done it at least once.
Sure.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Right. We know
it took me more than once.
A lot of guys it takes them a little longer. I want to go back a step, because I do after Sunday, after they, let them have 2 or 3 free meals Sunday and maybe Friday, Saturday night after the show. I do go back to the contest diet until Thursday. I want that Thursday is where we start with that clean slate, and because I want them to be about the same weight or roughly what they were that the day of the show or right before, and that's when I actually start increasing the calories. But I'm going to treat this question because he says he's looking for a pro card, right? And Skip, you just mentioned a regimented plan. So I'm going to assume that if this person's looking for a pro card, if they're looking for a pro card, that they're of the mindset of like, okay, what I'm doing today is going to matter for what I'm doing next year when I try to get on stage again. So we're not talking about first time people in this situation or maybe 2 or 3 shows in. We're talking about someone that's experienced. They've seen what the national level looks like, and they understand the discipline that it's going to take to get there. They had their fun maybe Friday after the show, Saturday, and usually those people come Monday morning. They're like, okay, I'm ready. What's my game plan? Are we increasing calories around my training? Are we adding these? Those people are coming to you, sending you a message, 6:00 Monday morning. Okay, what's my off-season plan? What's the next step? Right.
What do you guys do with training? I didn't mean to cut you off. If you have more, throw in more. Sorry about that. It just occurred to me because I do like to force my clients to stay out of the gym until at least Wednesday or Thursday. And if they insist on going back in at that point, to go in literally to have fun, screw off, laugh with people, get a pump, take some selfies, have fun, make a couple videos, to not go hard until at least a full week has passed. The reason is because it's not even an injury, even though that's the vulnerability to injury. It's not that, even though that's important. It's the immune system. Your immune system coming off a show is typically in the shitter, even if you don't think it is. And here's the funny thing about the immune system. The immune system won't, I don't want to say engage, but it won't show the negatives. Let's say shingles or like the zoster virus or cold sores. Yeah. You don't get them when you're stressed. Mm-hmm. You get them after the stressful situation. You're coming out of the stressful situation and your body then can adapt and fight. That's when you get that, or bronchitis or something like that.
Dude, I used to get sick post-show, like nonstop. Absolutely. Every year.
I got shingles horrible, so bad that I still have the nerve damage 24 years later, and I'll live with it until I die. It's horrible. So, and I've seen shingles. I've seen a lot of shingles from clients, but I haven't seen the nerve damage that they end up getting stuck with. So I had it pretty bad, but bronchitis is common, things like that.
That's
and it depends. How hard do you have to go during that prep, and how hard did you have to drive yourself into the ground to get into that condition? So not stressing yourself with the cardio and with even light cardio, moving around, there's nothing wrong with that. But going back in and doing 2 hours of cardio, a day just isn't a great, again, parasympathetic versus sympathetic. You do want to recover. You do want to rest. You want to hydrate. You want to make sure, I don't think that it's a good idea to cut your health supplements right away either. Keep taking your health supplements. Even if you're having cheat meals, keep taking your health supplements and rehydrate. Make sure that you're hydrated. Don't go out and get plastered with your friends, especially the day after the show or the night after the show when you're already arguably not hydrated anyway. It's a horrible idea. One of the first things you should do after a show, before you eat, hydration should take priority. You should go for hydration before you go for pizza.
That's all I want post-show. You think about it going in and you're like, oh man, I want to eat this and that. And by the end of the night, I'm like, I just want like something to drink and a piece of fruit. That's all. I love fruit post-show, of course, the sugar, but I'm thinking like the liquid in it. Yeah. And the liquid.
Juicy pear. Ooh.
And wouldn't you guys agree that the more shows you do, the less food motivated you are after the show? Last
figure it out
5 or 10 shows, man, I don't even remember thinking about, what restaurant are we going to? I left that to Rachel or whoever was in our party. Like, where do you guys want to go? Like it wasn't even a thought. Whereas my first show I ever did, I mean, it was up in Maine and we drove back 4 hours that night. And I swear to God, we hit every gas station, rest area, Sbarro's Pizza, Ben & Jerry's. And it's funny because it was back in early 2000s. My buddy was like, oh no, like off season starts today. Like you got to gain 30 pounds of muscle and it starts today. And you should be up 20 pounds by tomorrow. So I took him at his word and that's what I did. I ate. And at the end of the week, I was up 40 pounds and I looked like shit. So I got fat like 2 days after the show, not like not like 8 days after, 2 days after the show.
And you can't get rid of that either. It's like you can't.
Serious health concerns. I mean, the stress that you're putting your kidneys, and look, we've all probably come off of a very stressful cycle. We're already stressing the shit. We're arguably overtrained. The kidneys are, I don't want to say they're sputtering, but they're working overtime. And then you're going to go and you're going to gain all that weight. Your heart, I mean, I'm 54. I could come off a show, and if I did that and drank a Monster, I'd probably die. My heart would blow up in my chest. I'd lie down at night, wouldn't wake up.
You guys ever try to filter anything through a Wattman filter?
Yeah.
Maybe
I know where you're going.
Okay, that's what I feel like the kidneys are towards the end of a prep. Like early on, it's like, you're just dumping something through a coffee filter. It comes through. Towards the end, you're like pushing
it's like the 0.22 filter,
especially when you're moving water. I mean, the day of the
that's
show.
That's what I'm saying. There's no fluid, and it's like your body's working overtime just to get any of the toxins out in your urine.
RBC, hematocrit, hemoglobin are elevated. Your blood viscosity is that of like cold, like literally diesel fuel, like -10.
Yeah. Here's one thing I'll throw in on training while we're talking about that is that I'm with you, Skip, that I don't want people to train hard. And I'll make 2 quick points. One of them being, I remember, like you make a huge point on immune system. On the hydration end of things, I remember there was an FST therapist here in Michigan named Becky. Just awesome. She really helped me a lot with a lot of stuff. And she had worked with like a lot of powerlifters and strongmen, people who didn't do what we do in bodybuilding. And she pointed out to me, I was one of her first people in bodybuilding, and then she's worked with a lot of them. And a year into or so with working with bodybuilders, she said, I noticed that your connective tissue is different than my strongman competitors. And she works with like Brian Shaw and the people at the Arnold. She was like, you guys, it's ropier. She's like, I can feel, it feels different. It feels ropier and just like drier in her mind. And she said, even after you've done a show, it doesn't come back right away. She's like, it takes weeks, if not months.
I did a full article on this for Mountain Dog.
Did you really?
On the joints versus muscle tissue. Yeah. On exactly this topic. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but
But yeah, that was one thing. So I do think you are, like at risk too, which you kind of alluded to, Skip. But then also too, one of the things with training is I feel like a lot of times there's been cases where I've worked with somebody and we met like say 20 weeks out or 25 weeks out from a show. And then they want to keep working with me through an off season. And we don't really have an opportunity to really get into some deep training stuff during the prep. Like my thought is during prep, I want people to be in a good groove. Like I don't want to be trying all sorts of new stuff that you've never done before leading into a show. I want you to already know what you're doing. I want you to be training hard. Let's do that. Then post show, that's a time where we can start experimenting with new ideas. So one of my thoughts is like, immediately post show, let's not train really hard for a week, maybe even 2 weeks, depending on where you're really at. But then from there, let's start figuring out like, well, okay, you need to grow your legs. Well, what were you doing with legs before? To me, like we're talking about rebounding and making the best gains possible, right? Mm-hmm. I can think like, well, if we can activate the muscle in a way you had not activated it before, and we're in this position where we're pushing all these nutrients in, we might be in a good position to not only get this good rebound, but set you up for a new groove where you're activating the muscle in a way that is going to get the development we want. And I think that that's kind of a way that I do believe we can fast forward gains in if by focusing on a specific muscle group, especially like maybe you needed legs, maybe you needed back. You just finished the show. You're going to be hungry to grow those things instead of just doing what you've always done, which got you to where you're at today. Let's retool that and let's use our heads going into the off season. And it starts with those workouts once you've recovered from the show, Yeah,
100%. I differ a little bit from you though, Skip. I do like people going back to training on Monday, mostly, but I'd say this with a caveat, like no squats, no deadlifts, no barbell pressing of any kind. So I'm going to pull all the dangerous stuff that you could possibly hurt yourself with. And usually it's like I want like a 75 to 85% of your max intensity, that kind of, like, I give them those guidelines, right? And I do like, because you mentioned shoot the shit with your friends, joke around a little bit, do a little more posing than training. That's the approach I like to take. But I do like when going to the gym because, bodybuilders and athletes are so regimented anyway. And there is a big depression after a show, right? When you've been working so friggin' hard for this one thing. And now you're saying, okay, don't train. We're going to add food. You're going to lose this conditioning. We're going to pull the hardeners, all these different things. I do like the training to try to kind of be constant, or at least, an anchor for them, I guess. And I do like to pull, if they're doing 5 days, we're going to go to 4 days, maybe even 3. The 75, 85% max intensity. So I do like them to keep training, with the caveat of, like, none of these exercises that are going to put you in a dangerous position. Right. And odds on every year, there's always someone who they love incline benching 4.5 plates or something like that. And they like to post these videos and tag you in them. And I'm like, yo, remember when I said don't do this? Like, this is the exact example. Yeah, you got 3 reps out of this. Honestly, you got really lucky more than anything. Because I don't care if you can do this in the offseason. You still have Halo in your system. You still have Winston. You have all these drugs that are making you stronger in your system. But as Scott has pointed out, your joints and your connective tissues are not hydrated, and they're not limber the same way they should be. And it's just a recipe for disaster. But one variable we haven't talked on yet regarding the food, training, everything, is insulin sensitivity. That's something we want to maintain for as long as possible. That's going to be your main driver, because if let's say you tripled your carbohydrates and you went from 200 to 600, it's very easy to lose that sensitivity, especially if you bumped your GH pretty high after a show. Yeah. It's very easy to lose that sensitivity 2-3 weeks in. If you add in 3 or 4 free meals a week, or even 2 free meals a week, it's very easy to lose that sensitivity. And now, I'll tell you this, I absolutely go right back to dieting people if 3 weeks into it, they're waking up blood sugar is 100, 103, like, nope, we're going to have to start over again. And you're going to thank me in the long run, because, and guess what? You're going to look better longer too. Okay. I mean, and I say this because the question was phrased of, I'm trying to get to my pro card. Athletes that are that serious need to do the serious athlete things, right? They need to treat themselves as an athlete year round. And if you're going for, and I say this with experience from, like, say, working with someone like Nate Spear, who we had on the last episode, when we were gunning for that pro card, come Tuesday after a show, it was time to go to work again. And we were very meticulous about his food. We were very meticulous about making sure he didn't lose that sensitivity, and it carried him on to get in his pro card. And I think that's actually also been a big driver for his success from last year at finishing up the Tampa Pro to this year being 2.5 weeks out from Toronto.
You know what, too? I've had to have a conversation with people that's not a fun conversation, but people who aren't able to do that. And sometimes, here's the thing. It's kind of a tough spot in the sport nowadays, because there are guys who maybe only have done one show and they're already at a level where they could get a pro card, in like Classic, for instance, or Men's Physique. They're not ready yet for that pro card because they're not ready to do the things that we're talking about. And I've had to talk to people and be like, if this is what you want, maybe you're only a year in, but hey, you really have potential. Like, guy who's top 5 at a couple of shows, but he needs a little bit more work. It's like, you could do this next year if you stick to it. And if you don't, that's okay too. You know what I mean? But just understand, the hard truth is that means that you're not ready to be a pro, because being a pro is, and I have never turned pro, so I can't speak out of firsthand experience, but I've worked with people at that level, and I can say that, man, to be a pro is to really handle yourself exactly the way you're talking about, Andrew. It's a year-long thing. It's whether you're traveling, you know what I mean? It's whether you're feeling good. It's whether you get hurt. It's still maintaining it all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's and here's the sad part about that, because you are, in your situation, Scott, you're giving your best coaching, your best coaching advice to what's going to help get this person to what they say they want to get. They want to get a pro card, right? And the problem is, it's going to backfire on you, because either A, you're too strict, or you didn't give him any leeway after the show, so he leaves you, right? That's one possibility. Or the other one is and this is rare with first time or second time competitors, they say, hey, you know what? This guy absolutely knows what he's talking about. It's rare, because I just see in this industry, there's so many coach hoppers, and you see someone did a great job with someone, and then you're like, 6 weeks later, you're like, why did they leave that guy? He brought him in awesome. He looked amazing. You know, he's next in line, you know, for there he is. Yes.
What's up, man?
Next in line for a pro card if he just, you know, brings up those legs a little bit or brings up his lower lats or whatever it might be. But because you're too strict on him, he's like, I'm going to go find someone that's going to tell me what I want to hear right now. So there's that sad part of coaching, right? That where you might lose a great guy and 2 years later or 3 years later down the road when he does mentally get to that maturity level and he does listen to someone who's saying the same exact thing you were telling him 3 years prior, he goes and crosses the finish line, gets a pro card. His coach looks awesome.
Yeah. I hate to cut this off because I feel like we could probably keep going, but I know we have a bunch of listener questions. One of the common questions we get asked by you guys is, what would you do differently with your bodybuilding if you could go back in time? Given all the experience and education I have today, there's a number of things that I would have done differently. One of them is that I would have started using collagen sooner. Collagen is one of the few supplements that will actually rebuild connective tissue. It took me tearing my supraspinatus in 2021 to get with the program. I use True Nutrition's hydrolyzed beef collagen. I get the unflavored version. I pay for it myself just like you guys do. I use 20 grams a day, mix it into my coffee. It's totally unflavored. You don't even taste it. Plus, I use 10 grams of their micronized creatine. Creatine has been shown to improve brain health, especially for the aging brain. I need that. And of course, you know, we've always known about the muscle building effects. So this is my morning routine every day, and I'm encouraging you guys to do the same. Use our code THINK for savings. Plus, it's the only way for them to know that this advertising is being heard. Otherwise, they just think you're some random dude that clicked on an ad.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Some of them are going to be deeper than others. We had one from Matt Blevins on the live stream. Matt, I didn't forget about you, but I got a dilemma here because this is a dilemma I've been in before. Question on growth in shipping. Once reconstituted, I understand that it needs to be refrigerated. I'm getting ready to order another kit, but I'm also concerned about the summer heat and the box sitting out in the mailbox. How does heat affect the GH before it's reconstituted?
Not good.
It could absolutely denature it. I mean, there's several things that denature amino acids, right? It's heat, intense cold, electricity, sunlight. And I feel like I'm forgetting one, but those are the main things. And obviously, when
Dropping
you live,
Shaking it up, mix it up, and shake it up real.
just roughing it.
That's one of the reasons that I don't like to order from overseas. The other one is I don't like to order from overseas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Well, okay, let's talk about that because a lot of guys get their growth from overseas. And okay, how is this stuff normally shipped from overseas? It sits on a boat in a shipping container, which takes I think on a good passage, like 7 days, I think is how fast they can get it now. Maybe
pretty
longer.
Warm water, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's not like they're shipping, like that boat's coming from New Zealand, you know, to
it's also
to
not in an air-conditioned hangar or a shipping container, right? So, because I've had guys that, you know, we got their growth, they weren't getting any effects, we tested it, no effect on the GH when they did their GH serum test, no effect on the IGF-1 after using for a while. We look at the packaging and we're like, okay, this is legitimate growth. So what's the problem here? Are the counterfeiters that good? Maybe. Or, as you're alluding to, it came from overseas and it denatured. So that's a major issue. You know, that is definitely a major issue. For Matt, man, I like knowing someone that knows someone that has HIV/AIDS. You know, I feel like that's your best bet, because when you got a situation like that, marry that person, put them in your will, and you know, remember their birthday, send them coffee, gift cards, whatever, so that they keep, you know, selling to you and you only.
I think that, like,
Serostim, I mean, that's why I think Serostim is so popular and it's so damn good, because maybe not 99%, but the vast majority of it, if you're getting from, you know, HIV patients, it's going to be legit. And if, like, as an example, your source was only 3 or 4 hours from you, and they might overnight it, and your mailbox is not outside in the sun in, say, like a warm state like Florida, then it's not going to spend as much time being impacted by the elements, and you don't have as much to worry about. Now, not everybody has a situation like that, but when you do come across a situation like that, you don't have to worry about the quality of, or worry as much about the quality of the growth that you're getting, and spending more money is not as concerning.
I could say that the statute of limitations, I believe, has run out on anything I would have done that would have been questionable in my time. With that said,
not mine.
with that said, I believe that back in the day, I thought about this kind of thing, and I would literally make sure I placed my orders in the winter. And I also would think to myself, like, hey, during the times of the year when there's going to be a lot of packages being sent, maybe there's a less likelihood. Yeah, something along those lines.
Now, in fairness, though, just so people do know, not only is heat going to ruin, but you don't want to freeze. Do not put your growth in the freezer. Do not put it in the cold part. Like if you have chicken that'll start to freeze.
Frost over, yeah.
Frost over in a part of it. You don't want your gear in that part of the fridge. Keep it in the front of the fridge because typically the back, especially if your fridge is packed, like it's got a lot of shit in it, then the way the air circulates and it kind of it'll keep going. You'll have cold spots in your fridge and you do not want that. I'd keep them in the door.
Yeah, the door, like, I've heard of some people doing this where one of their vegetable containers near the bottom is like a peptide container where they might want to put growth hormone, insulin, or other peptides that like to remain cool but not get frozen.
And you'd want them in the front of that drawer, not necessarily the back.
Yes. Yep.
Or theoretically, you might have like a butter drawer on the door itself.
That too.
Sure.
That's
Some people use the butter drawer for their mixed peptides, but then the veggie drawer for their unconstituted peptides.
Some people do. I've heard the same thing. Don't slam that refrigerator door so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
sorry.
For Matt, though, what are we going to do for Matt?
This wasn't Matt. Matt had another question. We're going to do that one next. I wanted to let him know that we didn't. Too. Yeah, we didn't forget about you, Matt.
What I would say is that you would absolutely want to pay the extra for the guy to overnight it.
Yeah, that'd be cool if you could do that.
If you're getting it shipped in the summertime or anytime, from in Florida year round, really, you want to pay the extra money to get it overnighted. It's worth it. What's an extra $25 to make sure your $6,000 or $1,000 or $3,000 investment is going to hold,
I would go so far as to say if you're buying expensive farm grade and they're not shipping it overnight, I'd question that right off the bat.
Same.
Because if I was scamming people and I had fake Saracen, I'd pay the extra money to rip you off to send it overnight. So I guess there's that too. But
that's a good point too.
All right. So Matt did have a question for us, and he basically was just asking, how do I get food in? He said he's always struggled with eating enough.
You just got to do it, man. I
know, right?
When I was making all my gains, man, I didn't even think about it. It was like as uncomfortable as it was. Now, okay, tips to help you. Okay, do not let yourself get behind on meals. So, if you have to get up and start eating at 5:30, so then you can get your second meal in by 8 and your third meal so and so. Do that. Okay, it's worth losing a half hour to sleep to start eating a little bit earlier. You can take a nap later, even. Okay. Secondly, do not get behind on your water because when you stop, the thirst and the hunger mechanism are so closely related. And when you're satiated, that's not even a word, is right? When you're satisfied, satiated. Thank you. I don't know why. When you're satiated,
you said both words together. I think that's
satiety is what you were going for. Satiety or satiated.
Yeah, you're right. I did. Anyway. Shut the fuck up. What I did was, if you're eating a bunch of calories, the first thing that's going to go is your desire to drink more fluids, right? Well, when you drink less fluids, you're going to start to hold more water. That's going to leave you more bloated, especially when you're eating a lot more calories. It's going to slow down your digestion, make it harder to, it's going to slow your gastric motility, and it's going to then make you less hungry and then compound, and it's going to be harder to eat those next meals. So set an alarm if you have to, like a liter of water or whatever it has to be in between every meal. Okay. Separate your fluid from your meals, only rely on sips of fluid to get your pills and your food down instead of like guzzling a full soda or a couple shaker cups while you're getting your food down. I know back in the day we had the whole take a bite, take a chug kind of thing. That was horrible advice. It's definitely not long.
I used to do that.
I did too at some point.
Yeah.
It's
chew, swallow it like pills. You're done.
It's not great for long-term success, No. And then the last thing I will say is institute days of either fasting or pulling your food back completely. I would rather someone every 14 days or even every 7 days take a day of only eating 3 meals and letting their digestion get back to 100%.
I wish I would have done that. I never.
Yeah,
I just kept pushing forward.
Yeah, these are these things that we pick up as we're coaching people, and we try ourselves over time. And I'll say this, I felt guilty as hell when I started instituting stuff like this, say in 2018, when my calories were like 6 or 6,500, where I'm like, okay, Sunday, and let's forget free meals, okay? When you're eating that much and you're really pushing food, you don't want free meals.
You're taking mine. You're taking mine. I was going to say,
I'm sorry.
I would read that was my mistake, is that I would then think like, well, I missed a couple of meals, so I better eat a couple burgers now. And then guess what? That just ruined my hunger even worse,
Yeah.
But before you go to bed, that's not a bad idea.
Just slam the burgers before, right?
At least that way, you've got a lot of calories rolling through you at night. And if you have fast metabolism and fast digestion, let that food sit in there all night, or at least a good part of the night.
Yeah,
he's not ever hungry though. He's not ever hungry though. That's his problem.
Well,
I would say there's a couple of. Can I? No, I don't want to cut you off.
No, I took like 4 good ones. Like I'll leave a few for you.
I would drop anything. I mean, I know this doesn't sound very healthy, but it is what it is. I would drop as much fiber as humanly possible.
I thought you were going to say fats. Because fats will slow. I keep fats lower because fats will slow your digest. If I reduce fats, I get hungrier quick, and fiber too.
That's a tough one. I actually would go with more oils though than anything else. Like the peanut butters and things like that. I'm not a big fan of that. I would cut dairy. I would not have any dairy at all, because that's going to gum up your digestive tract. It's going to make it difficult it basically slows digestion because nutrients can't get through the gut wall as easily. But I would go with oils, maybe not a lot of them, but if you take, an equal amount of rice and an equal amount of oil, man, you got a lot more calories in a smaller area. And understand this, I'm looking at him not being hungry based on a volume of food, because you're not hungry, but you got to get the food in there. Yep. So you got to get it in there.
And I cut you off because
you got to get it in there.
I cut you off too because you were going with fiber. You're going to say fiber.
I would cut fiber, just to get it out. And I may go with higher glycemic, carbs, just about as fast as you can get. Things like potatoes and stuff wouldn't go anywhere near them. Anything with beans or anything like that, no. No.
What about the cheap, what are they, like Miracle Whip mashed potatoes? That are just like super processed and like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm even thinking like, cream of rice and things that can just go down in massive amounts. I'm not a big fan. You guys might be.
Can you eat cream of rice in the off-season?
Always argue about that. I'm not a cream of rice. I don't want it in there unless it's post-workout. I think
Scott,
it's
can you eat
crappy
it
carbohydrate.
in the off-season?
It's rice.
Cream of rice in the off-season.
But it's pulverized powdered rice. It's so fast, it's like a bullet from a gun. Rice is fast enough as it is, but at least your body has to break down a pellet of rice or a lot of pellets of rice. It doesn't have to do anything. It's just liquid rice powder.
So wait, are you saying to use it or don't use it in this situation for him?
In this situation, I probably would use it because it would digest so much faster.
That's what I like it for.
I wouldn't even put fruit in there. Yeah, I've been hungry for a skip load. Now I'll add like a juicy pear. We were talking about juicy fruits. I love pears, the real wet ones that run down your face. But I'll have one and I'll be like, that's filling.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Fills you up.
Guys, those any of those fast carbs you're talking about, because I know myself, I struggle with this too. And the things that slow me down are going to be fats, but especially like fibrous fats, like avocado or peanut butter, shit like that. But then those fast carbs, man, they mess me up. Like I would do much better with potatoes and chicken. Really? And I swear to God, man, give me an hour later, dude, I'm going to be starving. I swear to God. Give me give me the fast stuff, and I just feel kind of
potatoes, and I'm like, I'll be satiated for 4 hours. It's bizarre. Yeah.
I'm starving, man.
That's when you have a good coach that looks at your appetite, the foods list that you're using, and designs a diet that's based off. Because, dude, I got a guy, he eats 5 meals a day. He has 1 meal a day with like eggs and whatnot, but then his other 5 meals are shrimp and like those ramen rice noodles.
Okay.
They just go down so easy for him. So he does that 5 meals a day. He likes it. He doesn't get sick of it. Digests well, and that's what he does for like or no, he does 5 meals. So he does 4 of those meals. And then I think 1 like egg something meal per day. But here's a compound that might help. Cyproheptadine. You guys ever use cyproheptadine? It's an antihistamine.
Insulin. That's why I jumped on it and said,
I didn't know if Matt used insulin, but no, this one it's an antihistamine medication that does have some pretty strong appetite inducing effects. You might want to give it a shot. I think it's like 25 to 50 milligrams is the right dosage.
Okay. I'd be up for that.
Speaking of hunger and compounds, for some people, not me, for whatever reason, but EQ will kick up their appetite for some reason. It does not do it for me. It never has.
Me either. It makes me veiny.
Some people, they say it does.
Get real vascular in EQ. That's about it.
I think that probably has a neuropeptide effect that plays with like
GABA?
melanocortin. Might play with GABA, but melanocortin 4 receptors or agouti-related protein receptors or what's the other one? Does something with, you guys are familiar with the arcuate nucleus?
No.
Yeah, no.
It's like, here's the best way I think I can describe it, okay? Imagine a guy in a little room, right? And he's got 80 million computers and all these little gizmos and levers to pull. Okay, that's the agouti. What's that?
That's my office.
Yeah, that's you. That's you. Yeah. But outside, he's got this wide open window that has all these servers. And when he pulls this one, it activates that server. When he pulls this one, and they each do a function, whether it's increase in appetite, increase metabolism, decrease metabolism, all those different things. That's kind of what the arcuate nucleus is in your hypothalamus. It's like the metabolic control center. And I don't know why this isn't talked about more. I did a lot of research on it in my undergrad studies for my nutritional biochemistry class. And it was some kind of cutting edge stuff. And it ties in, like, you guys familiar with CART, cocaine and amphetamine related transcript, the melanocortin 4 receptors, opiate receptor, all these different receptors, and sending all this signaling to this one neuronal station in the brain that elicits an effect, whether it's, go do something crazy like sprint off the roof and dive to your death, to go and crack open, a bag of chips and eat the whole thing. Like all these different functions. It's like a very higher power control center, I guess.
And so you're saying you think that maybe EQ is somehow affecting that? Maybe
more so than other steroids or steroid derivatives. Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
For these people that do get the appetite inducing effects, right? Because
I don't get that at all. I never have.
Yeah, I never have.
And sometimes I even wonder when people tell me that they get increased appetite, I wonder if it's placebo at first. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I always wonder is when people say, like, oh, EQ is making me mental, or to use maybe a term that they've used, or it's making me emotional. Sometimes I wonder if people say that because they've read that maybe EQ can do that, or that, like, that's just an example. Like certain compounds have this side effect because they've heard their friends talk about it. Well, when you hear that and then you start taking something, you're going to look for that side effect, right? Mm-hmm. So you're more cognizant of it. Whereas if you had never been exposed to that knowledge or possible knowledge, would you even notice it?
If you're looking for yellow cars, you'll always see yellow cars.
There's a yellow car every other time. Yep.
All right. What about modafinil in a contest prep?
I've seen it work really well for my wife, but I haven't had a lot of clients use it. And the only reason I've seen it work well with my wife is because she has central apnea, or did. She's not diagnosed with it now, which is bizarre. But the difference between regular apnea and central apnea is central apnea, basically your brain just tells you not to breathe. I always laughed and said it was because I was holding a pillow over her face while she slept, but she didn't think it was as funny as I did. I don't know. I thought it was hilarious. But it's not from anything obstructive like a giant throat or, something else in your throat. So I know, right? Like I was going to go 2 shows without saying something immature. I mean, come on. Yeah, it wasn't going to happen.
You know what I don't like about modafinil? I don't like the half-life on it personally. I don't want something that's going to just be in there nonstop. Like if I was going to take modafinil, I have to take it like first thing when I wake up. I have sleep issues. I always have. And so anything I'm going to take that could be affecting me, What's the half-life on it? Like 500 hours, something like that?
I don't know, but I do know it does not. I mean, people sometimes misunderstand the compound. I'm not saying you do, Scott, but I've come across a lot of people who think that it helps with sleep. It doesn't help with sleep at all. All it does is keep you awake and alert.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
When you're sleep deprived.
I could imagine it helps you sleep when you collapse after repeated
like 3
dosages.
days. Yeah, 3 days later.
Yeah. Which would happen anyway if you stayed up and drank coffee, straight through.
When I say sleep, I mean like I'm afraid it's going to affect my sleep at the end of the night if I take it first thing in the morning. You know what I mean? Like it's going to still be stimming me out.
I don't know. It didn't make her leaner, though. I mean, it was very, very clearly.
It's an amazing compound. I've used the FL Modafinil before. Have you guys heard of
it wasn't like, make no mistake, it wasn't like Clen or anything like that. But it very clearly had a very, maybe not profound, but obvious impact and effect. So she was far less fat. She was even cuter. I mean, I was like, wow, that's bizarre.
I mean, I could see it being beneficial if it keeps, like you said in the last episode, Andrew, you're like, hey, Nate, try to stay more active, right? So, I mean, in that respect, if you are more alert and you're more active and you're doing more stuff, and it's going to help you with your diet. And we lose focus when we diet. There's a line in there for me. Yeah. And maybe part of it's my recovery, but I'm kind of like, do we want to get into that kind of stuff with bodybuilding?
How many drugs do you want to take?
And it's me personally. I'm not saying, I'm not going to judge anybody else who uses it, but I would question you if you absolutely needed it. He said, though, like, what about on occasions?
Yeah, and it is a compound that doesn't need to be taken every day.
Yeah.
That is, a lot of times it is prescribed to take as needed, not necessarily on a daily basis, but she was taking it on a daily basis.
I took it.
Like I said, it worked well.
I don't think I've ever used it. If I did, it was a very short run years ago. But would you guys say it's like maybe similar to like 5-amino-1Q in terms of like the fat loss effects? You know what I'm talking about? Have you heard of that one?
No.
It's something someone sent me a couple weeks ago, and I meant to do a little research on it. I'll send it to you guys.
I used it. It was post, I think, 2019 Olympia, maybe. No, maybe it was before that. But I remember I went to the Olympia, and then I literally came home, and I only had like 2 hours of sleep. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take this. And I used it, and I used it like within the prescribed dosing and everything. And it definitely did like keep me alert and able to function and put the content out and do all my work.
And it didn't wire you either, right?
Right. That's the thing.
My wife said, she goes, I don't feel wired. I don't feel
that's good.
It wasn't like,
I don't feel like I'm on caffeine. It's like just a different alert.
Yeah. They call it like the limitless drug when it first was getting popular.
Yeah, you saw the movie, right?
I never did, but I get the gist. I saw the trailer, which is basically like seeing the movie nowadays. You know what I mean?
Is it?
Any trailer you see nowadays.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
True.
No, it's not.
That's a good point, actually.
The trailer, like you see the setup, you see what happens, you see the building explode at the end, and then you see that they're still alive and they're walking away from it. I'm like, okay.
You're like, I don't need to watch.
And you can extrapolate that, like with a normal arc of a movie, like the good guys walk away having not died in that process. So, I want to also talk about or bring up. Isn't it funny as you get older? Or I should say, when you're younger, you're always looking for those things that stim you up and get you all jacked up. And then as you get older, like you don't want any business. You're like, I just want to be even cool all day and then be able to go to sleep when I want to go to sleep. Like that. Yeah. You don't want to like have these highs and lows. You definitely don't want to get remember the Jack 3Ds and all the 1,3-dimethylamines and all those pre-workouts that everyone did. It's like, I don't want to get jacked up on the way to the gym. I want to stay even keel and be in control of my physique and my body and my brain, and then also be able to turn it off when I finish my last meal and turn, shut it down for the night.
100%.
All right.
It's an age thing.
What about this one? We had a guy talking about what did he say here? How important are fats? He says, let's see, in the off season, are you guys big on added fats for enhanced athletes? What benefit would they serve? Serve over only eating minimum fats needed for bodily function and moving all those calories towards carbs for growth.
Well, I don't know. Is he saying is it beneficial to eat a lot of fat? I guess.
Here's what I think. Here's what I think he's saying is that as an enhanced athlete, you have less of a need for the hormone inducing effects of fats than a natural athlete would. But honestly, I don't think the fat and the hormones are that much of a deal with, if you're a natural bodybuilder and you're going through a prep, your hormones are going to be tanked no matter what.
Right.
Like, it's whether you're eating a higher fat diet or a low fat diet, you're going to be very hypogonadal towards the end of your prep. And if you're a female, you're going to be very estrogen dominant and have low test and low progesterone. That's a fact. But in terms of like fats, like it comes down to like you're working with someone and you might do, okay, this week I'm going to bump up 15 grams of fats. Do they look better? Are they responding better? Is that digestion better? Or I'm going to bump up 50 grams of carbs or whatever it is. Do they look better? Are they responding better? Is their training better, et cetera? So it's a personal thing. You know, some people do better with the higher fats. Some people do better with lower fats. But I mean, aside from like the benefits of fats, I mean, you do need some fats to absorb certain vitamins. So, I mean, you obviously wouldn't want to have a zero fat diet. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll admit, and I don't usually stick with numbers or formulas or anything, and I don't even when I say this, but sometimes if I have a client who is pushing a lot of food in the off season, they have a naturally fast metabolism, I do pay attention to the percentage of fat, like over basically all the calories, and I have found, and I think that there may be some basis with this, with the Atkins diet. It was one of the few diets that was trendy that I actually believed was relatively solid from a macro standpoint, kind of the 40-30-30 type thing. Excuse me. And I do like to not take the fat, especially with a lot of calories. I don't like to take the fat up over 30-35% of the total calories. I have found that I don't know that it not necessarily doesn't work, but it seems to be more optimal. Like when there's a lot more fat, then the digestion slows down.
Yeah.
It's just I found it to be a really good percentage, I guess. But only really in those situations, and it's not across the board, but it happens frequently enough that in situations like that where I have to push a lot of calories, that percentage is very, very good. I have found it to be very good for the vast majority of people.
What do you guys think about this? So a couple things. Some people aren't going to tolerate a ton of carbs, right? So like they can only eat so much carbs before they get fat, and fats may not have as much of that like blood sugar changing effect, right? Like you're not going to get as much of a spike from that. So maybe we could take somebody who is really trying to grow, but they can only handle so many carbs. We can get those calories up a little higher. I'm just trying to think of like where fats would benefit. And I'm with Andrew on the health thing, by the way. Like I remember reading about the necessity of healthy fats for production of serotonin, right? Which we produce in our gut. And so there's some, because it's beyond just the testosterone thing. So
Right.
I think there's probably a lot to that. Inflammation, healthy fats I think are good for inflammation. Scott Stevenson once told me he could tell the difference when he eats a lot of salmon. He was like, when he eats a lot of salmon, I've never noticed it myself. Maybe it's because I haven't eaten a lot of salmon, but he said he could feel like the inflammation being lower in his body.
I know I've noticed it because I switched my diet to, my fat intake is relatively speaking, very high omega-3 versus what it's ever been in the past. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half, to the point where I just hate walnuts, or hated them.
Yeah.
And I've actually grown to really like them, but I have to go through the high quality. I get them at Whole Foods, like organic from Whole Foods. And I literally, every time I go in there, I shake it's like a big plastic, and I shake it to get the big
They hate you.
fat ones to the top.
They hate you.
And then I eat
They're
those.
like, sir, please just grab them as they come.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I can't do it. And the reason is because sometimes when you grab the small ones, you'll be like chomping on them, and then all of a sudden there's like a part of a shell in there. And I feel like I'm going to wreck my teeth or something, and I get mad because I'm like, I spent $22 for this, or $25 for this thing of walnuts, man. There shouldn't be any shells in here. I got them at Whole Foods. Come on now.
You ever gone to Sprouts?
What's that?
You ever go to Sprouts?
No. I've been asked
Dude,
that, and I don't know why. Maybe it's
they got
just
like
because.
80 types of nuts.
What's those Whole Foods?
Yeah, but you're not paying Whole Foods prices.
True, but then I don't have the status of walking through Whole Foods.
I was going to say, then you don't get to walk around like.
I didn't think you went in. I thought you just had them ship
No,
stuff to
because
your
they
house.
screw up the order every freaking time. I get so mad. Now, I was saving a lot of money because it got to the point where it's so bad that they would cancel the order, even though I got half of it, so I wouldn't have to pay for it. But you can also only order 10 pounds of chicken at a time. That's stupid. And it'll say that they're out of stuff, and then I'll go to the Whole Foods 2 hours later and get everything I need. So now I go every Thursday. And I can't stand it because it's just deliver what I order and everything will be fine. I don't care about paying extra for it because I save time that way. But anyway, no, I go every Thursday. But I have gone very much higher on omega-3s, and I've noticed the same thing. I just generally feel healthier. And I'm not a placebo guy. Like I'm one of them.
No, you're not.
You're very cynical. I'm like,
yeah,
that's not going to work. That's not going to work, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I've seen it in my blood work. So it's actually helped with blood work too. Did it completely overhaul it? No, but enough that I go, oh shit, this is worth continuing to do. So things like like if you like cheese, pecorino cheese. I think it's called Fulvi or something like that. And it's not cheap, but it's a very good cheese. And it's made out of goat's milk.
Is it good?
You have all these cheeses, and you have
every goat cheese I've ever tasted.
Is high in
tastes
omega-3s.
It tastes like hay. Every goat cheese I've ever eaten.
It's really good. It's really good. Yeah. But just things like that, and of course more salmon. That's the poke and stuff like that too. I don't eat it during the week, but I always have it in my poke bowls, and I pay good money for my high quality sushi grade salmon. So it's worth it. I think it's. And I'm older. I'm older than most. 54. I got to make sure that when I drink my Monster Zero, I'm like, I'm going to have a heart attack.
This is my last one.
Yeah, this is going to be the last one of the day.
Yeah. Anyway. And what about this? Just thinking about what I might do in a diet. So say we have a guy who can handle a lot of carbs, we eventually reach a point where like, damn, these carbs are pretty freaking high. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And you can kind of push that diet further by adding fats into it from there. Right. So I don't think that carbs are like an infinity thing,
Yeah,
they're definitely not. I had a guy who, and I don't know why it took me so long to catch on, but we did an off season. He got fat and not even pushing a crazy amount of carbs. We did a contest prep. I should also preface this. He had very unfortunate genetics, and then we started his next, off season. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just really, really test his blood sugar and manage his carbs, but we're going to push carbs. We're going to figure out a way to do it. Loses his insulin sensitivity within 3 weeks. And we're talking like 250 grams of carbs, like nothing crazy, right? And he's a 220 pound guy. Yeah. So that was a situation where we really started utilizing fats. We're talking like 30 grams of fat a meal. And for carbs, it was more so fruits. We relied more on fruits and a lot less of like your typical bread and butter rice and cream of rice and potatoes. A lot of his meals were like a protein, half an avocado and some other oils added in, and an apple or 150 grams of berries or something like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got two more. I want to make this next one quick because he's in the live stream. I want to make sure we tackle it, and then I've got a fun training equipment question that we'll finish on. But Jake Radcliffe is in the stream, and he says he's been meaning to ask us carpal tunnel and growth. He says never experienced it in the past, but it is horrible this time around. Maybe very slight tightness in the past. He says same brand, the same dose, 5 units, 3 times a week. Why now? And any way to relieve it?
Is his weight up? Now? Does he weigh more than he did? Is he 20 pounds over what he was before?
You kept this GH in the fridge?
No.
What is that you didn't do that before? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is his weight up higher? Is he holding more water? Is he? I mean, I think correct me if I'm wrong because maybe this is outdated information, but it's essentially I don't want to say pinching, but it's the constricting of the nerves in the hand. I mean, I get a little bit of a trigger over here on my pinky on the one hand, and I've been watching it because clearly I don't want to, and it hasn't gotten it.
Oh no. Don't tell me my internet went out. So unfortunately, that was the situation. My internet did die and we didn't get to finish the show, but we were just about finished anyway. We had like maybe 5 minutes left. So that said, we're going to close it out this way. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want to reach out to me for coaching, mcnallydiets@gmail.com. You can reach out to Skip, teamskip.com. You can go to Andrew at bodyberry.com. And I hope everybody's doing great. Hope you guys are reaching your goals. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon.